The Supreme Court lifts order blocking Trump from deporting Venezuelans under the Alien Enemies Act. From the Hill, the Supreme Court vacated a judge's order temporarily blocking the Trump administration from using the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans, enabling the administration to resume removals under the wartime powers. The matter before the Supreme Court was not whether the Trump administration properly used its wartime power to expel those it has accused of being gang members, but from where those challenging their removal must launch their suits. While the order requires those challenging Trump to use the Alien Enemies Act to do so in Texas, where they are being detained, the court dealt a blow to the Trump administration's swift removal of migrants without hearings. The court said Venezuelans they seek to deport must have adequate notice in order to be able to challenge their removal, confronting the administration's removal of men without giving them the ability to contest their alleged gang ties. So the long and short of it is there had been an injunction, and the Supreme Court has, there's multiple cases that are actually need the Supreme Court to make a ruling on, but this one in particular, the Trump administration has been using the Alien Enemies Act, which I believe is from there was another one that I saw from 1798. Reuters was saying the Supreme Court lets Trump pursue deportations under the 1798 law with limits. So this is an old law, and that was part of the reason why some in Congress and Democrats in Congress were kind of worked up about it. I personally think that whatever means the government can use to remove illegal aliens, I think is acceptable. They're here illegally, and whereas I understand there are due process questions, the only people that actually have a legitimate question about due process is people that are here searching for asylum. Now, I understand most of the people that have come here illegally, they've been instructed to go to find the nearest border guard or and tell them that you're looking for asylum. But that's illegal anyways. You're supposed to go to a normal port of entry and request asylum. You're also supposed to you're supposed to stop in the nearest safe country.
Trump promised to use this law like multiple times on the campaign trail. And we should do, like you're saying, whatever we can to get. We were invaded.
Yeah, look,
so
man,
we got to get rid of a lot of these.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion anything we can do to get rid of people that are here illegally, we should do. But I'm wondering if our Canadian friends have opinions on this.
I'm gonna add one of the disappointing things here is that it was a 5-4 vote, and Justice Barrett dissented.
Yeah,
and I find that disappointing that she did.
She's
that.
had a few of those.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the bigger stories here, but obviously this went the right way, but that is a very disappointing.
I'm not saying we should repeal the 19th, but it was the men versus the women. The court's makeup is 5-5. Allegedly conservative. People would say that the men on the court are conservative. I'm not so convinced that Roberts is actually conservative. I think that he's as likely to come down on the progressive side as he is to come down on the conservative side. But Justice Amy Coney Barrett, she is certainly not a reliable conservative. But this is something that we see regularly. We know where the left is going to come down. They're going to side with the government, or they're going to side with whatever the left would side with, and there's not any question about it. And nobody's ever surprised with their judgments, or at least they're very rarely surprised.
Oh, with the conservatives, there's always a surprise.
Yeah, which to me, honestly, that in my opinion makes me think, okay, well, the conservatives are actually judges and the progressives are just ideologues. If you can always tell where someone's going to come down, you kind of know that they're ideologues. So maybe
it's
justice,
the balance of the scales. Right?
Yeah, maybe
they want to stack the
justice.
Court. Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's why they want to stack the court, because they know they're a monolith.
Yeah, maybe you could say the same thing about Justice Thomas. Even though I would clone him 8 times and we could have 8 Justice Thomases on the Supreme Court, I would be perfectly happy with that. But maybe you could say the same thing about Alito. But the other 3, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett and Roberts, it's a crapshoot. You don't know what they're gonna decide.
What were the other two cases? You said there was a couple that Amy Coney Barrett dissented on. There was another one that I remember was the border in Texas.
I forget, it was recent.
Yeah, I'm not
what it
sure.
was.
It's like last year. It had to do with
It was a couple of weeks ago, I thought.
I'm thinking of one like last year where it was like the border in Texas ran through federal land or something like that. It was a while back.
I don't know, and I wouldn't know where to. Let me see here. How much will there's
A
some.
woman makes bad decisions.
Oh no.
Imagine being the first name that comes up when you
Yeah,
look
it's her
that up.
face.
It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Typically The View, but
I'm not sure what decisions she has come down on the wrong side, but she is kind of it is a question mark as to whether or not she's going to come down with what would be considered a sober reading of the law or whatever. Most of the time you can expect the conservatives to say, okay, this is what the law plainly states, and this is how it's going to be. This is where my judgment's going to come down, and these are my reasons. And they're going to seem reasonable. The progressives, you can never tell what their reasoning is going to be, but you always know where they're going to land.
I mean, it's one of the sad things, right? When people talk about how the Supreme Court was never supposed to be political, in and of itself. What you wouldn't want to know the political affiliations of any of these judges. You want them to judge based on constitutional law, and to see it turn that way, it actually does scare a lot of people because, like you said, I see bumper stickers that literally say "pack the courts," and it's crazy that you see the amount of people that want to turn something like that into a political weapon rather than just a means of judging the Constitution. And that's a very, very scary prospect, given the fact that now what you have to worry about is every time there's an election, every time somebody new enters office, you say, how old is everybody in the Supreme Court? Like, you have to worry about it because you don't know whether, whether a death is going to happen or somebody's going to step down. And then you're going to have to wonder, like, what is going to be the political makeup of the Supreme Court next election cycle, when you shouldn't have to worry about it at all.
There's a strong possibility, I think we were talking about it on the show, but there's a strong possibility that Donald Trump gets to appoint two more people. Clarence Thomas is getting up there, and he's likely not going to want to do what Ruth Bader Ginsburg did and stay on longer than he can reliably stay. And
let
also
Trump put up someone.
Yeah, he would want Trump to pick someone. And also, I believe it's Sotomayor who has some health issues.
Yeah.
So it was New York versus Donald Trump, the case.
Okay.
Where she dissented with Roberts as well.
Thank you. But again, Roberts is someone he's definitely not a reliable conservative, which, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm fine with him not being a reliable conservative, just so long as the reasoning is sound. But it's not a surprise when it's Amy Coney Barrett coming down on and siding with the progressives. So, anyways, yeah. Let's see. The also John Roberts from Politico. John Roberts lifts midnight deadline for U.S. to bring back man who was wrongly deported to El Salvador. Just hours before a midnight deadline Monday, Chief Justice John Roberts gave the Trump administration a reprieve from having to immediately bring back the U.S. man who was illegally deported to El Salvador last month. Roberts acted shortly after the Trump administration filed an emergency appeal of a district judge directive that U.S. officials return Kilmar Abrigueo Garcia. I think I pronounced that right, Abrigueo. The administration deported Abrigueo Garcia despite an immigration judge's 2019 ruling that he not be sent to his home country of El Salvador because he would likely face persecution there. Roberts issued a terse administrative order indefinitely lifting the deadline of 11:59 Eastern Time to return Abrigueo Garcia, set by U.S. District Judge Paulina Zinnes. The Trump administration had said the deadline was impossible to meet. Now, this speaks to one of the questions that we've been discussing here. Do lower courts have the right or the power to pass an injunction that essentially prevents the administration from acting? So this is something that has very little historical precedent prior to, I think it was the Obama administration in 2008. So there was some in the 60s and 70s and 80s, but it was infrequent that this was used. And prior to the 60s, it was never used. FDR had passed, he issued many executive orders, and there was no thought that a district judge would be able to say, no, you can't do that, Mr. President.
It was thousands, I think, right?
I mean, look, I don't
like
know.
4,000 executive orders.
That's
the most, I think, of any president.
You could totally be right. I don't know. I know there was a boatload of them. So if we want to say 1,000 is great.
I'm going to say 1 million.
Millions and millions is what FDR passed. He almost broke his hand signing those executive orders. But yeah, there was no precedent prior to the 60s, and it was a infrequent thing in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. And then when Barack Obama got into office, there was a lot of injunctions. And now it's almost everything the Trump administration tries to do. Now, I mean, look, I'm sympathetic to the idea that the executive actually should have limited power. That the Congress should be passing laws, but the way that Congress works and behaves now, and the way that the presidency has become the action branch, I suppose you'd say, this is just the state that we're in, and that being the case, for the conservatives to say, well, we're going to try to do the constitutional thing and we're not going to try and do this stuff, then you're only allowing the left to exercise power, because Barack Obama had said it himself. He's like, I have a pen and a phone, and they're going to act when they have the opportunity. So I think that it is incumbent upon the Trump administration to act as expansively as possible until Congress steps in and says, no, you can't.
Well, and you have to worry about that now, given, what happened in Wisconsin. They're already talking about we're going to be getting impeachment articles written up in 2026 or 2028, excuse me.
Yeah, if there is a Democrat Congress, then they're going to try to impeach him again.
So beyond just not getting anything done, they're also going to actively interfere.
Yeah.
Trouble is, if you have 1 million or 10 million or whatever, then I've heard up to 30 million illegals, like an invasion, to quote you. You're going to have 1 million trials and 1 million appeals. No, you're not. It's not going to happen. And, you want to have some sort of rule of law. America is not a wild place. But if you are serious about getting this done, some of it will have to be done en masse. And folks who came in so evidently just strolling across the border, I don't know, I was just puttering with some math here. If there's 250 seats on any given airplane, you do 40 flights a day. That's basically a flight from every big city in America. That's still only 10,000 people a day. So let's say 3.5 million people a year. And that's not happening right now. Like, I'm impressed with what is happening. Oh, yeah. First of all, the invasion has been stopped.
Yeah.
First rule of holes, when you're in one, stop digging. Okay, that's been achieved. But you've got to deport.
Yep.
And it's got to be done en masse. Here's an idea, and I'd like your feedback. And I say this as a foreigner, but I believe very much in borders. I believe that you should be able to keep out a non-citizen for any reason or no reason. It's your country. It's like your house. Mm-hmm. You can kick someone. You don't need a good reason to kick someone out of your house. It's your house. Mm-hmm. Some European countries, I think Sweden or Denmark, I forget which one has tried this. And I know it sounds offensive at first, but keep in mind how many planes you need to deport people. What if you said, here's 10 grand, get out and promise never to come back? Now that's a lot, 10 grand. For 10 million people, that's $100 billion. Well, hang on, that's a sliver of what that many illegals cost the country.
Yeah.
$100 billion, not even $1 trillion. I mean,
shift the money over there from USAID. Let's do it.
Even at 50 grand each, it's still only $500 billion.
Isn't $100 billion, isn't that one B-2 bomber?
I don't know.
I mean,
I think so.
I think you need the carrot, but I think you need the stick, but also the carrot. And it sounds absurd that someone would self-deport, but you've got to, it is a time-limited thing we have here. And And when I see stories like that, justice this, bring back the man from El Salvador, I think if that's how they're reacting to the first, is it even in the thousands? It's probably not in the tens of thousands. You got 10 million, 20 million folks. Your country has been overrun.
Yep.
And you have to think like that. So the Alien War Act or whatever of 1798, that probably fits a little bit better than some, dainty legal process from the 1970s.
Our previous administration encouraged the invasion. I reported from Yuma, just a small sliver of the wall. And when I was down there, this is during Biden, it's like soft TSA. People walk across the border, the TSA, the Border Patrol, gives them a tag for their luggage, water bottle, a ride to their headquarters, phone call to whoever they know in the country. If someone picks up and knows their name, flight to that place. And that's happening daily, not to mention all the fentanyl that's going across the border through the tunnels and drones.
And it's a whole industry. I don't know if you saw James O'Keefe's movie on that.
I didn't know.
It is an industry. There are NGOs, again, with your tax dollars just waiting, waiting with lawyers, waiting, and get them away from Texas, get them into the country.
Not just NGOs, but the federal government itself. The Health and Human Services Department had a program called what was the program called? The Refugee Resettlement Program, and people were actually being shipped throughout the country specifically to purple states in the hopes that they would vote, that they would manage to get Social Security cards, which has now been proven to happen. So a year ago, I was talking about this particular plan, the Refugee Resettlement Plan, how the actual federal government was using taxpayer dollars. The Democrats were using taxpayer dollars to ship people throughout the country, and they were intending on doing two things. One, first, it's to get them into the census because the congressional districts are drawn up by the census. And additionally, those people were being given Social Security numbers, and they were being given driver's license, and they were being allowed to vote. Now, technically, it's illegal, but it was absolutely happening, and the goal with that was to change purple districts into blue districts.
Let me give you a 60-second anecdote.
Sure.
I like to travel to other countries to see what it's like there. Let me tell you a very short story from the little village of Dundrum, Ireland. It's a village of 200 people. It's the prettiest place you ever see in your life. And there's one sort of hotel country club in town where everyone goes for their cycle of life events. Gorgeous. 200 people in the whole town. And then one day the hotel signs a deal with the federal government. It's not going to be a hotel and country club anymore. It's going to take 240 military-aged migrant men. So they shut down the tourism, shut down the social hub of the town, and in one fell swoop, the Irish are now a minority in Dundrum.
That's wild.
Who are these men? How long are they staying? All this is secret. It's the most astonishing thing. And who's pushing for this? U.S.-funded NGOs. There's over 100,000 in this tiny island of Ireland with 5 million souls. And I say again, why is that interesting? Well, because sometimes they try out things over there that then they bring in over here.
Like they did to Haiti. Our government, we destroyed Haiti over many decades. It was like an experiment on what they want to do to destroy this country. And then that thing that you're talking about happened in New York City. I'm from New York, and a lot of family in the hotel and trades union. So they work in all these hotels, and all those hotels just became migrant facilities. Totally insane. And then not to mention they were giving like debit cards to illegal immigrants as they showed up into New York City. Bananas.
You're a hotel owner. You love it. You don't have to worry about reservations anymore. You got one client who always pays the bill. No dine and dash. You're set.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.